There's a language of the heart that many people who have struggled with addiction, it's foreign to them. And I've realized that oftentimes the simplicity of just choosing, the choice of remaining unoffended and entering into relationship and drawing people into an encounter with God through a place of peace, through a place of extending grace in the midst of their behavior, it can expedite people's growth. And I saw this happen in such a powerful way when I was working at a treatment center. Now, I worked at a treatment center for about 9 months when I first moved here to Ohio, and I began to see a lot of patients growing, a lot of amazing things happen, just being able to connect with them on a heart level in a relational way, treating people not like they're a project, but treating people like they're people, and withholding judgment, entering into a place of understanding and walking them into so much of the grace and growth I've experienced in my own decade of recovery. One day, a young man was rather disgruntled. He was a little upset. He had been there at this treatment center that I had worked at for a few days now, and he had an injury to his knee, I believe it was, if I remember correctly, and it was legitimately hurting him, and he went to the nurse's station and was asking for something a little stronger than ibuprofen his first few days into the treatment center. And the doctor that was in there was not going to give him what it is he was looking for, and he was upset. He was upset. He was saying some things that he later wished he wouldn't have said, and was making them very personalized and direct to the doctor. And I had developed a reputation, I guess you could say, at the treatment center for being able to bring about some breakthrough with people who were difficult. I would like to say it was some special Jedi mind trick. It's really not. It's just loving people, accepting people, loving them, and entering into that space of their struggle to bring healing. Goes a lot further than we think sometimes, or oftentimes rather. I get called down there. I go down there, and I'm trying to calm this individual down, and they're calling me every name in the book as well, directed straight at me. And something happens when I remain unoffended, and somebody is throwing insults at me. Somebody is directing these verbal shots at me, and I remain unoffended in the moment. I become a mirror for their dysfunction. Because what they're trying to do is draw me into their misery. Misery loves company is actually very real. They're trying to draw me in, and I'm not going to do it. I've been to that place. I don't want to go to that place, and I'm not letting it affect me. And he's now calling me names. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, this has nothing to do with me whatsoever. He doesn't even know me. He's revealing his own heart here, not mine. But I've just remained in that place of saying, okay, all right, I understand how you're feeling. Okay, a few more names get thrown at me in the back of my mind. I'm like, well, I've been called worse, but okay, sounds good. He calms down a little more. We leave the room, get to chatting some more, and I just sit down next to this individual. Another clinical person came to the scene and was trying to calm him down too. He wasn't responding well to that at all. One of the things I've realized about people in recovery or have struggled with addiction is they're really, really good at reading people, and they can tell in about the first few moments of interacting if someone that's coming to interact with them is treating them like a project and using some set of specific skill set, or use this sort of approach when this happens. They can tell immediately, all right? But that foreign language of just entering in without looking at them like they're some broken project, but just saying, you're a person, I love you, I'm here to help you, what can I do? It's foreign to them, and it disarms quickly. It disarms all of that dysfunction. Not every single time maybe, but often. The clinical representative that was there wasn't necessarily getting the breakthrough, so he just allowed me to chat, and I begin chatting with him. And after just remaining calm, not letting him work me into that space he's in and trying to pull me into that space, I said, hey man, let's go back to your room and chat a little bit. And we went back to his room, and immediately in his room, we get back to his room, he's behind closed door, he's in a safe space now, and he just opens his heart, starts pouring his heart out. He's like, oh my gosh, I hate this life I've been living. Like, you have no idea. I've been on pills since I was a teenager, and I've never liked it. And this, like, I don't want to behave like this. I don't need to behave like this. And I'm like, man, I get it. I've been there. It's all right, man. I understand the space that you're in. I said, but hey, would it be okay? I have a question for you. Would it be all right if I prayed for you right now? Would you be okay with me just praying for you and asking God to intervene in this situation and bring about the transformation that's needed, the peace that's needed in this moment right now, the healing in your need that's needed right now? And he agreed, and again opened up even more. He's like, oh my gosh, I would love that. He's like, I managed to stay, clean and sober for 2 years, like right before I turned 20, and it was the only time I've ever been able to do it, and it was because I was going to church and I was praying and doing these things, and I got away from that. He said, absolutely, you can pray for me. So I prayed for him, and I prayed for healing for his knee, and I prayed for the situation, and I left it at that. He calmed down. He's apologizing. He's like, oh man, I just shouldn't have acted like that. And it's like when we choose not to engage in the misery, when we choose not to respond, like I said, it becomes a mirror for their dysfunction, and they see like, oh my gosh, why am I acting like this? What did I do? Why did I do that? And now he's apologizing. I went and got him a set of crutches that he wouldn't end up needing, but I went and got it for him and chatted with him some more, calmed him down. And just, I like to emphasize, because it's like it didn't take a PhD. It didn't take a special training. Those things are necessary and have their needed place. And thank you for the people that are doing that and that are in the fight against the addiction problem that's going on. But it didn't take that. It just took a place of just loving people and allowing God to enter into the situation and do what only he can do. The next day, I left at that. If I remember correctly, I was coming off my shift, and when I was working there a while back, and I was just coming off of my shift, and I think I left just a little bit after that, if I remember correctly, not too long. So I didn't see him again for the rest of the day. I see him the next day, and immediately, as soon as I see him, he comes walking up to me. He walks straight at me, and he says, hey man, listen, I need to tell you something, dude. He's like, it was really weird, okay? But ever since you prayed for me, my knee stopped hurting immediately and has not hurt since. I don't know what you did or didn't do, okay? But my knee is fine, and it's really strange. I said, look, I'm in a secular treatment world, but guess what? King Jesus isn't intimidated by rules about when you're allowed to talk about him or not. Really, he's just not concerned in the slightest, nor is he intimidated by it. I began to tell him, look, man, what Jesus did on the cross was took care of all sin and all sickness, okay? And I began to tell him, if he can do that for your knee in a heartbeat, because that was him, that wasn't me. I don't possess the power to heal your knee just by a prayer. That wasn't me, okay? That was Christ who lives in me, who came and transformed my life from the inside out. Him flowing through me to touch the world around me. He's the one that did that to your knee. Imagine what he could do to your life. Imagine what he could do to your heart. Imagine what he could do to transform your entire reality and bring it into the space of freedom, complete freedom from addiction. And I look at this big picture of this mess that we are in right now with the addiction and drug problems and this, that, and the other. And I can't emphasize enough the power and the influence and the ability that you have in your sphere to impact people just by operating in a place of love, intentionally entering into the mess to bring a message, and putting ourselves in a position to where if God doesn't show up, then there's nothing else. Continually putting myself in a space to say, all right, Jesus, I believe you are who you say you are. I'm going to put myself in the position for you to do what only you can do, and to see him come in and bring transformation into people's lives. We have the privilege of interacting with some people for a matter of minutes, and we never see them again. We have the privilege of interacting with people for a few days, and we have a relational connection there. We have the privilege of interacting with people for a month, for some people for years, some people it's people we walk with for our entire life. But we have these windows of opportunity, and we can either plant the seed, water the seed, or have the privilege of seeing God bring about the harvest and have them step into full freedom. But there's always moments where we can choose to say, I'm going to make this moment not about me, but about God. And I'm going to put myself in a situation for Jesus to show up and for him to do what only he can do and bring the transformation that only he can bring. So I just leave you with this question. Who is it in your life, or what situations have you been in or are frequenting where you can say, I'm not going to be offended right now. I'm going to choose to be that mirror that's unoffendable, and it only is just a mirror for them to see their dysfunction. And then as their defenses lower, because that's what patience, that's what kindness, that's what grace does, it disarms them. It disarms them, and we get straight to the heart of the matter, because it's the language of the heart that begins to bring transformation. We get straight to the heart of the matter, and it's in that moment, then I can plant the real seeds. It's when they let the guard down and they open up their heart. Then the soil's good, and then we can plant the seeds of love, of truth, of praying for God's power to come and do what only God can do. What opportunities, what situations are you in where you can choose the choice of being intentional and saying, I'm going to be unoffended right now, and I'm going to let God's power flow through me to do what only he can do in this situation.